this computer. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Desperate Literature. We've just got one person who's waiting to join now. I'll just admit them. And I don't know. Cool. So I'm going to do a quick introduction and then we'll get going. So thank you for joining us here in Madrid for the first of the two events that we're going to be doing for the Desperate Literature Prize for Short Fiction shortlist selection. And it's now been published as 11 Stories 2020, which I imagine most, if not all of you have got. And tonight we'll be hearing 5 of the 11 readers, concluding with the winner, Angela. So I want to firstly, and we'll be going through and we'll be thanking some people as we go through, everyone who's been involved and all the collaborators and partners. So obviously, first of all, I really want to thank everyone who entered, because it's definitely no word of a lie to say that without the prize, Desperate Literature might not have survived the first part of COVID. And so I'm incredibly grateful for everyone who participated in the prize. We really do think we've got an excellent shortlist, and I hope you guys agree after the reading. I'd like to thank the people who read, most of whom are actually here, so read in the first part of the prize to judge it. That's Rob Greer, who's on the call, Emily Westmoreland, Charlotte Delat, who's my business partner, Moira McCavanagh, Joan Fleming, Don Chapler, and Paloma Reaño Hurtado. Obviously, we're very grateful for our superstar judging panel, Claire Louise Bennett, who's also on the call, Rachel Kusk, Niven Govindan, and Atessa Moshfegh. Rachel Kusk and Niven Govindan gave us some quotes about the shortlist, so I'm going to read them just so you get a bit of a big up before we start going. So Rachel Kusk said, "I thoroughly enjoyed reading these submissions, which surprised me with their honest poise, their integrity, and their understated adherence to the values of literature. In the hands of some of these writers, the story form was brought to bear on the modern scene in new and astute ways." And Niven Govindan, who's a wonderful writer from dialogue books, said, "I was bowled over by the power, inquiry, and humor of these stories. They shine brightly in the mind after reading, and hopefully they'll shine brightly in your mind." If any of you did make it here ticketless and didn't get a PDF, then you fancy picking up a copy, then we'll be putting a link in the chat afterwards. And along with that, there'll be a link to obviously to our website and a donation link as well. If anyone has the spontaneous urge to help out, that would be very useful for the after effects of COVID. So before I introduce our first reader, I'm gonna now just thank the two main supporters of the prize, and that's the De Groot Foundation and the Civitella Ranieri Foundation. Civitella Ranieri is the 15th century castle in Umbria in Italy, and Angela will be going there in the end of 2021. It's really amazing, and I'm very jealous that she gets to go. And the De Groot Foundation support us by paying for half of that, the support there and for the prize funding. And so without their continued support, we definitely also wouldn't be here. At the end, we'll be opening up for questions, and I'll just let everyone know how that works when we get there. And so without further ado, I will introduce Lorenzo, who's one of the shortlisters with his story, You Can't Come Home. And Lorenzo's story was in my reading group from the very beginning, so I saw it go all the way through the prize. And I definitely knew as soon as I read it that I had something that I wanted in the shortlist. And it's a lockdown story, and I read it, and as soon as I picked it up and started reading a lockdown story, my eyes sort of rolled. I was like, oh, here goes. But it's wonderful. It's really amazing. And as soon as I read this and I saw a great lockdown story, I was just like, yeah, I'm so happy this is here and this is included. So Lorenzo, thank you for submitting. I'll read the very short biography that Lorenzo sent. Lorenzo Mandelli lives, writes and works in London. His story Maria is currently shortlisted for the White Review Short Story Prize 2020. And I will find Lorenzo and unmute him now.
Hi, can anyone hear me? Thanks a lot. Thanks, Terry, for your very kind words. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. Of course, I love literature like everyone else. I've always gone to readings for the drinks afterwards. I'm thoroughly sorry we won't be able to gather after this for a few rounds, but we shall soon, perhaps, somewhere in Europe. or in the UK. I'll get going because there are lots of great readers tonight. So I'll start with my story. It's called You Can't Come Home. You can't come home. This is my mother's voice. She's at home in northern Italy, sitting on the red couch in the attic where the bookshelf is. I know she's alone, and I swear I can hear her looking at my books while speaking to me on the phone. Books I've brought back home from France, Spain, Argentina, England, and now I'm here in this pub in London, and I can hear my mother surrounded by books in languages she does not understand. You can't come home, she says again. You're stuck there. I know, but this is where I live. I look up and see that they've turned on the television at the pub. I see hospital wards, masked doctors, bleary-eyed men in ties, drone images of deserted cities, and then other hospital wards and doctors and nurses, or perhaps the same ones as before. They're saying this is Italy, this is my homeland. And then I see more images of cities, all deserted, squares I wouldn't be able to name, streets I've never walked down, long queues of people amongst which I attempt to recognize somebody I know, maybe an old friend or an acquaintance or my mother. And indeed, I realize I'm waiting for her face to appear up there on a television in a London pub. If what they're saying is true, then surely my house should appear too, with the attic and the red couch and the books. Now numbers are being shown, the dead, the infected, and their maps, graphs, curves, predictions. There's both a mystery and an exactitude to the way all of this is happening. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, sorry, I'm watching BBC News. What are they saying? They're saying what everyone else is saying. It's crazy, isn't it? It is. And then we laugh. My mother's laughter makes the sound of paper being thrown up into the air. I feel certain, for a second, that her laughter is my homeland. Stay safe, she says. I say, you too. And as I hang up, I know that something has changed in my life, in the world perhaps. I'm at another pub now, in downtown Boston, celebrating the end of the 20s. My mum rings to wish me a happy new year. It's already 2030 here in Italy, she says. I say, good for you guys. You're traveling in the future. When I hang up, I see that I'm surrounded by people. I didn't know any of them 10 years ago, and now I love them. I hug them. I call them by their names. It's all sorted now. 10 years have gone by, and it's all sorted. A woman in a yellow dress comes my way from across the other end of the pub and kisses me. It's midnight. The decade is over. Let's go home, she says. By the way I kiss her back, I realize that I love this woman. And yet she will leave me. In fact, she has already left me, and I'm at home in Italy, sitting on the red couch in the attic. My mother is old. I'm older too. I can see it from my hands. I'm crying. Why am I crying? We broke up, I tell my mother. We just broke up. And I see two darkened knots of wood in the active floor, and I see the red couch and my books, each one of them, and they lie quietly on their bookshelf, and my mother is quiet too. Everything so fully brought into existence, so exact. And then I say, I'm happy to be home. Where is she? I hear my mother ask. But before I have time to answer, I'm walking around the cemetery. A girl is with me. She's my daughter. She speaks English with a faint American accent, and I speak Italian to her, with the accent I've had all my life. You can't come back, or was it you can't come home? I no longer know. Thousands of days, and I no longer know. Now my homeland is my daughter, I think. And even if I know this is not entirely true, everything is going so fast I have no time to think about it. I have a dream in a hotel room in a small town near Bordeaux. I'm bathing in a volcanic lake in the south of Chile. I've just found out I have cancer. And then I'm in Barcelona. It's spring, and I'm in a wheelchair moving down Gran Carrera de Gracia towards the old town. The young man who's pushing me forward is talking to me about the new European epidemic. And I'm reminded of the one that happened in 2020 in Italy and across the world too, of course. The young man now wants to hear about my experience of the epidemic. Which one? The one from 2020, he says. And I would like to be able to tell him in all honesty that we knew that we were living through history, or that nothing was ever going to be the same again, or that one morning more than 50 years ago, I stood at my window in London and had the knowledge of something growing in the silence outside. But now all of this comes back to me like some unspeakable fucking tide. And I look ahead and think, Barcelona is beautiful today. And then I turn my head slightly and say, I'm sorry, I think I need to go back home. I think I forgot something. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'll do the clicking. Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Yeah, I love your story. I'm going to unmute Moira, and Moira, you can introduce our next reader.
Lovely. Thanks, Terry.
Mm.
Thanks again, Lorenzo. That was lovely. We'd also like to thank, additionally, some of our partner bookstores who also supported the prize. So that's Typewriter Books, Burley Fisher Books, right, who's here with us tonight, I believe, and The Second Shelf. So thank you all. The next story that we're going to hear is Roving by Erica Van Horn. This, for me, was also a story that really stood out when we first began reading. I think what the story does so well is delineate the very specific rules of the universe that these characters live in. And it does this cool thing where sort of at the same time, its narrative voice uses its own very, very specific logic. And so I was reading it, it just sort of felt masterful to me in the way that it was capable of doing these two things sort of on these two different levels of the story. So I'm going to read a little bit more about Erica. I'll read her bio and then we'll hear from her. So Erica Van Horn is an artist and writer born in the United States. Recent publications include Living Locally from Uniform Books, and Me from Coracle, Too Racuous from a Chorus from Coracle. My apologies, Too Racuous for a Chorus. She lives and works in rural Ireland. So whenever you're ready, Erica.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Right. So thank you, thanks. I'll just start right in. Roving. Mossy and his mother like a drive. It is the going that they enjoy. They like to drive the countryside and they like to look at things. They like to see who is planting what and in which fields. They like to see who is whitewashing a shed. They like to discuss a newly built stone wall or a recently repaired roof. As they drive, they remind each other who has married out of that house recently, and they remember who has died out of another house. They speak of the dead as she who left the house feet first. They call this driving around and about roving. They set off without a particular destination. Sometimes their roving takes them far from home. What they consider far from home is not really too far from home. Far from home is anywhere just beyond the immediate neighborhood. They never drive so far that they do not know who lives in the houses that they are passing. They prefer staying near. Mossy and his mother smoke cigarettes as they travel the roads. Sometimes they're both smoking, and sometimes only one of them is smoking. Anyone who sees them pass can see that the motor car is full of smoke. The windows are always rolled up tight as Mossy drives. Mossy always drives, and his mother always looks straight ahead. The car is always full with smoke. Mossy never takes the cigarette out of his mouth once he has lit it. His cigarettes have no filters. They begin white and cylindrical, and quickly go soggy and yellow. He lights a cigarette, and then it stays sticking onto his bottom lip until he smacks his lips together for another drag. Mossy's mother is old. Mossy himself is not young, and his mother gave birth to him. So she is at the very least 15 or 20 years older than him. It is hard to know how old either of them are. To the eye of a stranger, they might even pass for siblings or for a married couple. Mossy's mother always wears a shapeless dress and a cardigan. The colors of her clothes are not memorable. Her clothing is colorless in that if a dress once had a color, it is not one that you would notice or remember. Her dresses might be floral or they might be striped. Whatever color she is wearing and whatever pattern she is wearing, Mossy's mother looks gray. She will never be caught without a cardigan. In the way of all rural women, this is something to avoid at all costs. Mossy himself wears a suit. His suit is made of wool. Mossy wears a wool suit all year round. He is never without a buttoned-up waistcoat. The suit he wears is always a three-piece suit, but the parts of the wool suit are rarely from the same wool suit. He wears his white shirt buttoned right up to the top. He does not wear a tie. The shirt is white and the shirt is buttoned up, but the shirt is a bit grubby. In a disheveled kind of way, Mossy looks tidy. As they drive the winding lanes, Mossy and his mother work up a thirst. When the thirst becomes too much, they call to a house where they expect the woman of the house to be at home. There are plenty of farmhouses and isolated dwellings where the woman of the house gets driven into town for the shopping once a week. Otherwise, that woman is always at home. When Mossy and his mother stop at one of these houses, they expect to be offered a cup of tea. They never refuse tea. They do not wait to be offered the cup of tea 3 times. 3 times is the habit of the country. If anyone is offered a cup of tea, the polite thing is to say no. If the tea is offered a second time, it is refused again. The third time the tea is offered is the correct time to accept. Mossy and his mother call to a house because they are ready for a cup of tea, so they expect to be offered the tea. And of course, why would they say no to a cup of tea when a cup of tea is exactly what they are there for? Mossy and his mother are happy when they have a mug of strong, milky, sweet tea in front of them. They recount to the people of the house every single thing they have seen on their drive. They report on the things they know to be true, and they report on the things they have discussed and which they have decided are probably true. Once they settle in, Mossy and his mother are in no hurry to leave. If there's a fire and someone to talk with, or at least someone to listen to them, and someone to brew another pot of tea, they will stay and stay. If the time comes for the midday meal and Mossy and his mother are still sitting at the table, it is difficult for the woman of the house to prepare the dinner and not to offer them some food. They stay for the dinner, but they do not help. Mossy's mother does not offer to scrape the potatoes, nor does she offer to help with the washing up. Mossy and his mother sit and they drink tea and they smoke their cigarettes. They smoke while the food is being prepared and they smoke after the food is eaten. Sometimes one of them keeps smoking all the way through the dinner. Mossy and his mother arrive expecting hospitality. They know that a guest cannot be refused, so they allow themselves to be fed and listened to and taken care of. Sometimes a naggin of brandy or whiskey appears. Mossy and his mother are not averse to a drink. They never refuse a drink. They might drink a lot, or they might drink a little. When they're ready to leave, they are ready to leave. It is always their own decision. No one can rush Mossy and his mother out of a house when they are the guests. One day, Mossy and his mother are stopped by the Garda. Maybe it is because Mossy was driving too fast. It is more likely that he was driving too slow. A road with a painted line is rare, so Mossy might have been driving in the middle of the road. After the stopping, the Garda see that Mossy has paid no road tax for his car. They see that his motor tax has not been inspected. They see that he has no insurance. They do the test and establish that Mossy has been drinking. One of the Garda drive Mossy and his mother home, while the other one follows in the Garda car. Back at the house, they tell Mossy that he is no longer allowed to drive. They tell him that his car is not legal on the road, and that since he has no driving license, he should not have been driving anyway. They tell him that he will have to come to court, but that someone else will have to drive him as his car must stay at home. They tell him that he will receive a letter in the post. Mossy does not respond to the Garda. He does not say one word to either of them. He lights a fresh cigarette and he gets out of the car. He leaves the door wide open and he walks into the house. His mother sits in the car until they help her out and walk her right up to the door. She does not speak either. Because Mossy no longer has the right to drive, he and his mother take to roving in the early morning. Mossy walks into the village in the afternoon to fill up his petrol can. He usually gets a lift home. Mossy stands on the road with his full petrol can and with a cigarette on his lip. He waits for someone to pick him up. He stands far out in the road. He stands far out in the road and bent from the waist. He stands bent towards the road rather than away from it. He never puts his thumb out to let drivers know that he wants a lift. People just know. If they already know Mossy, then they know that he is headed towards his own house. It is easier to pick him up than to run him over. It is no trouble for anyone to drop him home. As the springtime moves on and dawn arrives earlier and earlier, Mossy and his mother set off from home, first at 4 and then at 3 a.m. They have the narrow roads to themselves. There is no one else out and about. They drive the countryside while the light gets stronger. As the sky gets brighter, they are able to see what is going on at the houses and farms of the people they know. They are able to comment and observe upon the changes in their world. They can still note who is planting barley and who is late with the potatoes. The only thing they are not able to do is to stop at a house for a cup of tea. While Mossy and his mother are out roving, everyone else is above in their beds. There is not one person awake to prepare a cup of tea for them.
Thank you, Erica.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to introduce our third reader. Before I do, I'd like to thank Anna of Casa Anna, who will be putting up one of the a residency for one of the shortlisters, for Charlotte Seymour, who's just joined us on the Zoom, of Andrew Nurnberg Associates. And Charlotte was the agent who signed last year's winner, Francesca Rees, and also meets with the winner and our runners up about future projects. So thank you for your support on the prize. So next up reading we have Suey Kweon with Mapping Chilies, and this story was also in my group. There's a sort of rhythm going here. I introduced stories in our group, and I really, again, as soon as I read it, I knew it was something I wanted to stand behind. I really, every time I've read it, because obviously we've reread these stories now. The process means you end up rereading the stories that come through quite a number of times, and every single time I read it, I loved it more and more. It really feels alive to a sort of diaspora experience, whether in the very particular close relationship to the culinary world, or this sort of paradoxical farness, closeness of Google Maps and what sort of a relationship that might give us to the landscape we're in and the landscapes we're not in. And so I really hope you like it as much as I did. I'll read Suey's biography. Suey Kweon was born in South Korea and grew up in the UK. Until the pandemic, she worked in a restaurant in London whilst trying to write stories. And let me just find Suey. There you go. I'm meeting you now. So yeah, thank you, Suey, and I hope you enjoy the story.
Hi. Thank you, Terry, and everyone at Desperate Literature. My story is called Mapping Chilies. My mother used to lay out her chilies to dry from around August time each year on the pavements that line the tower blocks of apartments. The best real estate was naturally the concrete road, which was dark and absorbed the hard sun most robustly. But it was hard to find enough of this space where cars rubbed shoulders to be and were given preference over chilies. She used to lay out the blue tarpaulin and scatter the chilies in an even layer across, allowing them to surrender to the dusty sun. Unmelting blue plastic, the brown nasal drone of cicadas, this was the palette of summer. There were always those women who would hedge their bets and action their chili drying earlier, when the rains had only just seemed to have cleared up, and it broke my heart to see their chilies slumping on sodden newspapers after a surprise renegade shower. Dried chilies, if successfully pulled off, were a wealth beyond themselves. I would have guessed that the drying itself took up the best part of a month, but I count myself lucky if I got to witness even the early chilies' debuts. Would imagine, instead, redness overrunning the pavements, love the view of darkening fruits spilling onto car bonnets and boots, chilies bringing a city to stillness. After the drying, I know they are grounded to fine powder, gochugaru, with instruments of kinds nosying in on the process. Powder goes to all sorts, reconstituted into familiar food things more solid that come out of long hours pounding, massaging, waiting. There is something so proud about the word homemade, and it gives me capital in this land of peas and carrots. My carrot should be crunchy, fresh and seasoned, made by a woman older than me who was raised firmly in the understanding that she'll grow up into a wife. I like the sizzle of food against hot oil, sounding like the last pitter-patter of the season on the mosquito nets that provide the first barrier to a home. Thin metal mesh that you dragged along outside your window, sieving creatures out of the needed breeze. When the weather is this hot, though, the elderly will be sitting in the sheltered benches that litter the apartment complexes, some minding or guarding their chilies. There is a cooler breath in these curbside benches than where the air conditioning units pump out heat into the stale height above the streets. Catch the right angle, a good bearing, and the wind will whip the sweat right off your back. I come from a land where chilies are a gift or a curse from the exotic, and when I first saw schoolmates eating the skins of pears, I was astonished. I would say dreamily. I remembered thinking it was dirty and unpleasant. This is how I could explain to my mother something about England she didn't ask to be explained, and I knew that she heard the gratitude in my voice. That I knew of grapes you could swallow the skins of, shiny exteriors on apples for gripping onto and biting into. Even as an adult, seeing a friend crunch through a fruit until its emaciated core dangled on a saliva thread from its stem, this brought me fresh wonder. At home, my mother would cut these things into bite-sized pieces, I think, to encourage slow consumption, easy digestion. Grapes would be highly prized in the summer, when I might be there, with their skins tough and sour, as were the beetle-like seeds inside when chewed upon. My auntie and cousins would rupture the ashy skins with their teeth and let the smooth ball roll out through the slit, a sweet hidden gem. So many skins spat out in Korean kitchens. My laptop screen shows me a blister in time when Google's camera and wheels sculpt through, capturing a man who's just dropped his phone, a silver Hyundai struggling to park, a uniformed boy sweating to fulfill his restaurant's 30-minute delivery promise. I know that it's pretty recent because of the fresh colour in the complex. I remember when suddenly the taupes and beiges were more than just blemished, when in the next impression they were licked up and blinged out by soft lavender. Maps these days speak much more than their ornamental forefathers. They are triangulation, satellite, traffic, a way to find home and to leave it through a voice in your ear. You can skim read a city like this. There is a shop I see in my auntie's apartment complex called Bling Bling, in English, as in medallions that could be dumbbells or grills that make your jaw ache, that sells I Heart NY t-shirts, children's Disney costumes and everything in between. It looks sort of like a charity shop here from the tiny square of it visible on the street, but it's called Bling Bling and wants to make a quid. Squidged between a sign for a laundry service and letting shop, Bling Bling is crisp white Tipex swept through veteran smudges and frayed edges, plastic and watercolor that makes you wonder how it stays so lifelike. This corner of commerce, shops holding up cram schools for kids in English, maths, piano upstairs. Next time, Bling Bling will be gone after maybe a year of blundering exchanges, replaced by something called something like Blossom, selling the same t-shirts and costumes recycled. That was close to where I was sitting waiting for my cousin's daughter to get off the school bus to nursery and back. The bus was television, American anorak yellow, and she was being taught in the English language while she was young enough for it to stick. I didn't really need to wait for the child because the bus was only 10 paces from her apartment block's entrance, but it wasn't a disturbance to me, and I liked sitting in that peace within a city with roads that used to put me on edge with their wide, many lanes. I was stressing about the time that comes when this baby reads her books more fluently than my sing-song cadence. Rhythm afforded me secret time, afforded her a performance. Stutters became staccatos, and my adoring audience liked the tension before a plot. That patience is the product of good child rearing, my cousin probably thought. Then, her babble with the grasshoppers and ants, splintering their spindly legs by stepping on them. She was so cute, I wanted to eat her. A split-second failure between street view to satellite shows a parallel universe marked by grid lines on a digital screen. We compose ourselves. Recover to see the same green rooftops of these cloned buildings. Remember my grandmother's old house, peculiar because it was a house with its own private walls and roof, a lovely Arcadian past, now from the 17th story. Her roof was still also coloured in this green paint. There are rumours slipping around online that this is a result of a monopoly of roof paint by a Chebol company. or that this paint helps to waterproof homes, or that the green reflects light to help cooling. We amuse ourselves by thinking of travellers flying overhead, awed by cities verdant and lush, oxygen abundant. Most of the green tiles visible at the tops of towers, edged by thick borders of their own shadows. We pinch and part my fingers like gods. The universe blunders, trips up. Names of places become vaguer until South Korea, then the world. The icons of magnifying glass and arrow, serviceable euphemisms for a body, probing to the unsullied depths of this land until we can count the little squares that make up a factory. We hunger for blocks of stone, fabrics to finger, microscope on atom, to move more inwards into populated streets faster than you can walk, to be in an autumn-coloured day and stare up for a long time without neck craning or eyes blinded by sky, for a city of right angles and rectangles found at the bottom of a kaleidoscope, to see a tree that is tree-like and stays in its place, for a chili to shrink in its skin at the snap of a button. See a screen scramble to keep up with the wind on a cool day and compute this jagged flow of pixels into gibberish. Make the earth a ball against blackness, and this little corner less than a smudge under cloud forms. My greenery made snotty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I will now put Rob on, who is going to thank you. So I love the story. I'm going to put Rob on, and he will introduce the next reader. Sorry, my cat. Come on, please. Where are you, Rob? You're at the top there.
Hello. Well, first of all, thank you to everyone joining, and thank you for everyone who's read today and who contributed to this collection. Yeah, it's amazing. I just really wanted to say very quickly a big thank you to all of the partner journals that we work with. So when we were setting up this prize in 2017, one of the big things that we wanted to do was work with all the people that we knew who were involved in literary journals and ran literary journals, and to bring them on board to the prize so that people who, you know, if you were in the prize, then we could put your work forward to them. So this year, those journals are 3 AM Magazine, Open Pen, Helter Skelter, The Second Shelf, The London Magazine, Gorse Journal, Prototype, and Hotel. Also, big thanks to Structo Magazine and Ewan from Structo, who have been a partner journal in the past, and he was a judge in the first year and very, very helpful in setting up the prize. So I come now to introduce a story by Mira Mattar called Artist Open House, a horror story, which has just been published in the second Prototype journal, which is amazing, which is really, really great. So I didn't get to read this story until the shortlist stage, but I think all of us that read it at that point, the long list stage, sorry, when we were deciding the shortlist, but all of us that read it at that point, you know, it really, really grabbed us, and we all loved it. And I'm just going to defer to Rachel Cusk, who said of this story, "This is a subtle tale that winds through unexpected registers of emotion. Its structure is light, almost casual, a sign one soon realizes of the writer's authority. Its simple classical theme, the perception of bourgeois life and marriage by a woman outside its structures, is brought to its resolution with admirable control." Yeah, and it's a story that we all really, really loved. And I'm just going to read Mira's bio, which is, Mira Mattar is a writer, editor, and tutor. She has recently had work published in Zarf, Tripwire, and Data Bleed. She lives in Southeast London. More about her work can be found at her-moth.tumblr.com. And at this point, I'll hand over to Mira.
Hi, am I being heard?
You are?
Good. I think I'm probably the only person left who uses Tumblr. Thank you to Terry and everyone at Desperate Literature. I'm just going to change the view because it's weird. Okay. Yeah, thank you for everyone who's put work into this prize and for picking my story. So I'm going to start now. It's called Artist Open House, a horror story. The rain droplets on the Audis outside the semi-converted church glinted in the back of my eye. Kit Kat foil touching a filling. Visible from so many spots in Forest Hill, the intricate spire of the Gothic Christ Church followed you round town. You go to Superdrug, you go to Sue Ryder, you walk in the Horniman Gardens. You could see it from all over, from all over the South London suburb, like John Smith's Black Tower, watching you. There's a word for that molar metallic tang in Arabic, lamse, touch, like a glance. How the lightest contact can announce something terrible. A tiny battery in your mouth. Ions carried through the saliva, sparking when the two metals touch, a galvanic shock. Bilinguality can be a lonely terrain. You're always also having a second conversation just with yourself in your other little heart. That kind of white metallic light rang out clinically, an immediate pain signaling potential more pain to come. That was the anxiety of being a child waiting in the dentist's office, or an adult waiting for a lover that just would not love, or, in this case, two old friends sucking their fruit pastel ice lolly sticks and wondering where to maturely deposit them. One of them wanted to litter, the other disapproved. They decided together to stack the sticks against a bit of sticking out church architecture. They were 36. This friendship flourished particularly well amidst the silliest challenges. It was August, hot, actual hot like in real countries. It had been all summer. As usual, this made the British nervous, day after day, swimming outside even, walking home late with bare arms and that heavy blossom smell, grinning, woozy floral scents and ripe white t-shirts, pigeons ravaging leftovers from polystyrene takeaway boxes chucked, hot rubbish smell. Perhaps it was perversion, but I liked it all. I liked how things couldn't hide, smells and needs, how the body was feeling, how wrong the world was, how we didn't have much time left. Just taking it easy with that sick gelatin creaminess inside bright red ice sugar lolly. Hyperventilating on the bus, a whole wet thigh up against yours, on your way to work, stoned in a park, pissing in the bushes, the possibility of somebody beautiful feeding you blackberries. The two friends, born a few months apart in 1983, one in London and the other in Manchester, squalling curly heads, strange interiors, had lived close to each other, in Coventry accidentally, and on purpose in southeast London for 18 years. That summer, I had been liberated against my will from a number of situations. This meant that on a Sunday morning, I could do whatever I wanted. It was good to remember that freedom, that is, a feeling of it only at this point in history, means losing something too. It kept hurting, but sometimes when there are no options, the path becomes starkly clear, in that it is the only one. Still, I hope you were never abandoned. What I kept realizing more and more and more was that freedom and happiness weren't the same thing, weren't even parallel lines. All this meant on that morning is that I could indulge my desire to see into the houses of others who would open them up for reasons probably ranging from narcissism to loneliness to a semblance of neighborhood friendliness in the name of art and in the name of art's cousin, community, under the friendly organizational umbrella of the Artist's Open House. I didn't like to imagine all those dirty trainers in my narrow hallway, looking out the dirty windows, paying me compliments as I might see suddenly the dust for the first time in practically solidified lumps settled on top of every light switch. I love people. I love strangers even more sometimes, but not while I'm enjoying the illusion of my home. Still, if ever there's a chance to see inside an unusual structure, I will take it. I'd identified my tendency to allow unmonitored, rudderless curiosity to be a guiding principle, snorting up whatever comes my way, then detailing the aftermath. I'd seen how it can erode me in a relentless insistence to strip away anything that wasn't the fact of mortality. So now I knew what degree of wanting to know wouldn't kill me dead. Artist Open House, it said, with an arrow on an A4 sign, and we followed. The apostrophe? I worried about possession again. Into the lift and up, out and along, a door open and no one there. This was the entrance to the spire. Almost the whole church was flats now, for people older and richer than us, and the spire, we presumed, must be the fanciest one. We looked at each other, sensing the beauty to come, and readied ourselves to feel inadequate. Our little flats, with our little toasters, IKEA shelf inserts, teaspoons with nothing to say for themselves at all. To the right of the hallway was a short flight of stairs, proper wood, from real trees, deep honey shine, like clear caramel. It was already delicious. The steps opened onto the second floor, a space defined by gorgeous wooden beamed vaulting, all in that honey-coloured elastic ease, as if they weren't holding anything up at all. Nothing in the room save a dining table with fashionable perspex chairs, presumably to offset the traditional wooden table, and a what might be mistakenly called Moroccan-style chaise longue scattered with Kalim cushions. A few more steps carried us up, ogling at the soft furnishings, to the kitchen, where we found the people. A lithe, white-skinned woman, probably our age, sat very well with a balloon glass of red wine before her, and her two very clean, fair friends also behind their big glasses. They were laughing, but in a knowing way, like laughter during an emergency. She had smooth, golden hair and a giant, very detailed artwork behind her. The window, which was the spire's clock, a disc rotating about its central axis, was open, letting in the day in stark, pretty halves, and somehow in itself alarming that that could be done to a clock. Like the kitchen surfaces, it had a shining face, upon which the sun glared in flat, occasional flashes. We greeted the beautiful woman. I wanted to touch her skin. "Are you the artist?" we ask. She laughs. "I used to be. My husband is upstairs." She gestures. There are no signs of children, but I knew they were there, for I could sense what they sense. The edges of this woman, angry, frayed, hiding. I know those edges from both sides. But it was hard to tell if I was really seeing and for the first time perceiving, or if my own terror was casting everything I saw in the darkest shadows. But just because I knew I was seeing through a symptom, it did not mean I was not seeing clearly. I didn't care about the art. I was there for the horror of property, and there was so much of it. We kept slipping up floor upon floor of caramel-stared good taste in the narrowing spire, with only space for one room per floor. Sometimes there would be a bathroom, chic but usable. Other times a child's bedroom with little curtains decorated in sweet primary-coloured dinosaurs hiding stores of toys. Innovative book storage techniques, things you'd never think of yourself. A bedroom of a teenager encouraged to express himself, or to express his parents' desire to project this idea. Pretty clothes stored in a half-open secret cupboard, colourful light falling in patches around us, at our feet and faces, from the stained glass restored for the conversion, until finally we climbed the penultimate staircase and entered the studio. A perfectly square room with windows on all four walls. Modern casings had been built onto the backs of the original Lancet windows, through which you could see the spectacular views across the borough and beyond. The houses, tiny from this height, rows and rows of ordinary, painful lives, organised patches of green for sanctioned pleasure and rest, my own block on a hill to the east, its pale yellow concrete helping me spot it, blinding flashes from paddling pools, cats and their shadows stalking, schools, supermarkets, the train station, its bridge under which the council would, 2 years later, paint over the graffiti commemorating the life and death of S, the woman who lived under that bridge for many years before her early passing. And the artist there at his big tall table, a black and white striped long-sleeved t-shirt curving over his rounding belly, black baseball cap, white face. The images he made were large black and white linear designs of repeating patterns, reminiscent of Turkish carpets or Levantine embroideries, but without depth or energy, without the history of black or white, without even the withoutness of nihilism, without Gothic romance, without the radicalism of Malevich, without, as if black took away instead of defined. He talked us through the pens he used, black Sharpies, different nibs. He gets through so many black Sharpies. It's hard to work here because the children are so noisy. He shows me a huge drawing, a white curve on a Sharpie black background. Above the curve, towards one of its edges, is a white circle. Below the curve is another curve, as the one that would be made by a thumb and an index finger working together to form a U shape. I step back a little and see, it's a hand cupping a breast. A feeling I didn't recognize then, but know now, was curving into the lower part of my body. Just because something is boring, it doesn't mean it isn't dangerous. As the artist spoke excitedly with my friend about my friend's work, which was of interest to the artist, the feeling snaked further in. The artist's son, it turned out, might benefit from my friend's expertise, and so was summoned with one clear call, not even very loud, and alarmingly potent. A teenage boy emerged, sweet, stuttering, something in his look that told me he was always doing his very, very best, and yet. The artist observed my friend speaking kindly with the boy. I tried to shift the focus so they could talk without observation. I sensed the boy performing, and in a deeper way than the one that sometimes occurs when a teenager speaks with an adult. The artist wouldn't talk to me. Out of habit, and because I didn't want him to become interested in me, I had played myself down. Acting like you were boring was an increasingly helpful defense. I stepped back and let them talk and be watched. I took photographs of the views. You could stand in the middle of the room and turn around the spot and see the horizon in 360 degrees. Had I ever seen that before? Kent to one side and the city to another, swathes of suburb and green belt, simultaneously spacious and claustrophobic. I think to produce work in a room like this might impede it. What would detail mean after this? The sun was excused and the artist worked on my friend. Slick, falsely louche, about a decade our senior, lucked out on the property ladder and making a lot through advertising which funded the art, as though there were a difference. The room was so hot, all those windows, all that light. I didn't want to be closer to a bird than to a cat. You had to go through the studio to get to the master bedroom above. It was the only way. The beautiful wife had to come through the studio, these artworks, to sleep beside this man. Sometimes the worst part is how loud the same problem is. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. We've now reached the last reader of the evening. And in my haste to hear everyone read, I didn't post any of the links that I said I was going to post, so I'll do that in a second. So our last reader is our winner, Angela Finn, with her story Excerpts from a Pale Blue Notebook with Silver Stars. When you're reading so many stories and you're putting them through to a shortlist, everyone has their preferences. But I think one of the things that was really clear was just how all the judges really quickly came to this. It was clear that Angela's story was to the top, and that's very nice to see. Rachel Kosk, again, I will defer to Rachel Kosk. I think that's a dumb thing. Said, an affecting account of the breakdown of family life, whose notebook form is used to give authenticity to the peculiar attrition of a mother's mental state by a husband's abandonment of her. This is a harrowing and true record of the cruelty and injustice that still defines so many aspects of private female experience. Angela Finn is an Irish writer and tutor. She lives in Dublin with her children. She was nominated for a Hennessy New Irish Writing Award in 2018. Her writing has appeared in The Fish Anthology, The Irish Times, Poetry Island Review, Moth Magazine and elsewhere, and has been broadcast on RT Radio 1. Will be our last reader for the evening. I'm going to find wherever Andrew, there you are. I'll mute you. And welcome and congratulations.
Thank you very much, Terry, and thank you so much to Desperate Literature. And I'm still quite overwhelmed, having won this competition, especially when I've listened to everybody tonight reading and I've read all the other stories. The standard is just amazing. I'd also like to thank the sponsors and everybody who organised this, and the judges as well. So should I go ahead and read? Okay, thank you. Okay, well, the story is it's in a sort of a diary format, so it's a little bit fragmented. So just bear with me. I'll try and read it as best I can. Monday, Feast of the Epiphany. House cold, shivery, damp in bones. Can't sleep, ate little all day. Gone 6 days. Can't imagine what will happen now. Can't imagine what will happen us. Mouse droppings, cooker top. Thought, hoped, coffee granules. S hyperglycemic after Spider-Man icing from birthday cake. Ketones in urine. Up early, mouse flipping on floor. Trap attached, squealing, pitiful, head caught, fat little belly, pregnant possibly. Used shovel from M's companion set, killed in garden. Threw up in grass, watery vomit. Grass long, weedy. Will cut in spring. Got boiler lit before kids woke. Pilot flame yellow, not good, M says. S back to school, tree up still. Lights tangled in branches badly. Fee rang, says she'd cut wires and bin. Said, sure, what would new set cost? Like nothing, like £10. Cherry lights wedding present, Fee not sentimental, not a bit, not at all. H upset, tinfoil star ripped, could not cope with tears. Or came by after work, detached, terribly pleased with self. Something cocky in demeanour. Hung coat and newel post like just returning from work, like nothing going on. Upstairs, heavy-footed to read stories. Excuse me. As though hand had owned mind, took wallet from inside pocket, pretend it was dropping videos back, drove uphill, palpitating, opened wallet. Photo of me, nowhere, gone. Her face in place, not pretty really, not a bit, not at all. Receipts in bundle. One for Silcut, the sun, eggs, Wrigley's. Another for wok, spatula, must be living with. Cinema stubs, good seats. Considered confronting, could not. Wallet back in pocket before downstairs. Can't sleep. Took tree down, cut wires, binned cherry lights. Tree in 3 sections, jammed somehow on top of shelf of wardrobe. Can't do attic, ease things, mice nests, who knows what else. Rang Fee. Fee says should get myself solicitor. Can't believe she reads Sun. What is happening? What's he thinking? Offered to call him. No, I said, no. Bereft, off kilter, can't think straight or face much. Pain and sphincter awful all morning. Maybe lack of food. Woke with spasms, doubled over. Or called evening. Picked up casual clothes, wash bag. Made effort. Black bra, velvet cami under mohair, coal. Or, can't say I don't love you, and then, it might be you. Would not look me an eye. Insomnia, think about them at it, someone having a party few doors down. Counting backwards not helping. Must give up coffee, will twist lace of shoe around finger, might help. Uncle B's trick. Weight of shoe dangling woke me around 5. Finger dead, will ring M later. M came with blackout lining. Smell reminds me of hospital undersheet. Helped sew onto curtains. Made banana bread, added raspberries, ate 2 pieces. Or took kids to park, noticed little ball patch at back of head, maybe alopecia back. Forgot vanilla candle burning on mantle. Heard mirror, deco one, shatter from upstairs. Like tiny explosion, cursed 7 years. H to Stark Montessori, new seat for bike fitted to crossbar easily. New helmets too, pink, purple. Can't deal with boiler. Back to bed after dropping H. Forgot to reset alarm. Montessori called, H upset. So many silverfish on toilet floor since Lionel ripped up. Left light on all night. Or texted on way to airport. Something about business trip to Israel. Won't be seeing kids. Excuse me. Fee says sounds more like holiday. Saturday to Saturday. Come on, might be right. Don't want to think about. Curious though. Mouse baby. Orphan. Entrap. Still alive. Possibly attracted by Easter eggs left out. Must refrigerate. Hardware man with missing pinky recommended Lucifer traps. Bought 6. S wants to tally mark dead bodies on blackwood. Insomnia. 2 valerian, brandy mug before bed. Seemed to wake every 10 minutes. Boiler completely fucked. Lit for a minute, then flame died. Thumb sore from pressing dial. 2 more mice, need more traps, house riddled. Hospital checkup. S, HbA1c okay, new glucometer. Bruised thighs, has grown 2 centimeters. Professor says insulin trapped in muscles causing hypos. Or after dinner to watch Simpsons with S. H in bed early, left new coat, nice. Black cashmere, 70%, bottom of stairs. Took wallet, drove to park. Receipts for restaurant in Rome. Rang from park, asked if they had nice time in Italy. Furious. Shouted, told me to get back immediately. Me who should be furious. Said stopped off in Rome on way to Israel. Geography not great, but 110% he is lying. Met solicitor morning, nervous, cried. Not sure if nice, creepy. Said, would come over to hug, but don't think that would be ethical. Not sure, expensive, but no choice. We'll use emergency fund. Kids with or daytime, drove up mountains till ears popped. Threw Russian wedding band out car window. Or apologized, admitted lying. Nothing set in stone, he said. Still, might be you, he said. Lucky me, I said. Miss twiddling with ring, keep running thumb over finger, may get replacement. Fee rang, it's so over, she said. We drank wine while chatting. Said views from new apartment amazing. Church opposite is now a wine bar, must visit. Fee asked if we'll ever get over, probably won't. Ordered starter from Jumbo's just to get wine. Passed out on sofa, woke up birds chirping. Etching evening, fritillaria, copper plate, or with kids, demanded me back before 9, I said date. Be back when I'm back, I said, defiant. Dipping copper plate in acid when text came to say he'd have her in the house if not home soon. Ran lights driving home, never known such anger, scratched face, surprised self, fully expect solicitor's letter. Showed M letter, let me look at your nails, pity they weren't longer, she said. Lioness defending Dem. We'll come to court if it comes to that. Sad, long silences. Bird song loud in chimney. Printed fritillaria. Naphthol red, phthalo green, might frame. Slept little, sound of mice scraping an attic. Dee's inquest, first time on new tram. 5 of us to coroner's court. M took stand, swore on Bible. Pitiful to witness. Summing up, coroner asked if any questions. Raised hand. Asked if D in good health. Would he have lived much longer? Coroner philosophical. Sometimes we need to respect right to end life. Went to bakery on Talbot Street after. Cakes, tea in stainless steel pots, loose lids, tea leaked, soaked paper cover. Exhausted now. Own solicitor, annoyed, re-scratching, funds dwindling, what to do? May apply for legal aid. Relentless rain, wind, stayed home all day. Front gutter broken, leaking badly. Mold patches spreading like maps in sitting room. Or sent text on way to airport. Away for 2 weeks, asked where, no answer. Phone switched off, to have his freedom. Phoned Or's mother or holidaying in St. Lucia. Sick about this. With H at dentist, cavity baby tooth, such neglect, no guilt like mother's guilt. Not enough money in account, receptionist annoyed when asked to send bill. Pitch dark, home late to find bird in kitchen. Startled. Must have come through chimney. Starling, I think. H petrified, S excited. Phoned Fee, then shooed out with sweeping brush and sheet. Beak bleeding, spatters of blood on kitchen wall. Will paint. All rang all evening, ignored, wanted to speak to kids, could hear tropical morning birds in voicemail. a magic sunshine, sky, beach, red, sunbed rose, yellow and green birds. Raining buckets here, fuck them. H afraid bird will return and now afraid of dogs, cats, all animals. Locked up fireplace with garage wood. Lit tea lights, had ceremony to keep birds from coming. Place looks more like squat every day. Went to park, H and S played ages on rocks. Sat on bench, blue sky, little cloud. Tried to figure out why birds turn white to black and black to white. Must be how light catches. Solicitor's letter, or claims I'm depressed, unfit, I'm depressed, I'm anxious. S, sick whole week, housebound, world shrinking. School principal rang or phoned, wants to meet him, concerned about S, sounds weary. Says has seen it all before, thanked him for letting me know. Mother's outside school, all talking about holidays, dreading weeks ahead. Morning, heavy rain, upended Lego box, sitting room, now playroom, satin garden, lavender abundant, largest bees, rosemary bush flowering purple. Started Simpson's jigsaw at kitchen table, enormous, 1,000 pieces. With S and H to Willy Wonka, Johnny Depp's teeth so white. Hate August, house fetid. Smells like botanical hothouses, bad drains. Awfully humid. Clothes smell strange. Parked car on whim and drove west. Later, or called every few minutes. Forgot was his day, ignored calls. Sun now gone down in Oranmore. S vomited on way, both asleep now. Or texted, said he'd report me. What future is there? Or did report me, answered 5-digit number on mobile. Guard seemed sympathetic. Crying lots, B&B owner Evelyn kind. Made coffee. Sent S and H to garden. Had been there, lost weight too. Says all will turn out okay. Says you have your treasures. Wish I could see things her way. M phoned, or looking for photos to bring to guards. Wonder which ones he'd have used. Drove to Galway City, told kids they could have anything. S wanted a new Nintendo game. H a toy ironing board. Carried board around town like a surfer crying. Woman stopped me, said regretted not buying one for her daughter, now an adult. Letters as anticipated from solicitor, social worker, envelopes ripped. Spring too tight on letterbox. Danger to small fingers. Appointment Friday with S, social worker. P called over. Bought a bottle of Happy from duty free. Smells sickly. Browsed ages in self-help section. Bookshop man asked if children mine. Stole book. Social worker. Wore floral blouse at P's suggestion. Building smelled of dentist. Walls ugly, mint green and primrose yellow. Cried, which is good apparently. Showed I care. Says help there if I need. Or had kids for sleepover. One night stand, regret, lights off at his request. Probably conscious of back, so hairy like an animal. Said he wrote lyrics for Morrissey, song. Spoofer, believed briefly. Drink, naivety. Loud snorer, awake. Could see Christmas tree branch poking from wardrobe. Depressing. Timex left under pillow. Texted, no reply. Wash sheets at 90 degrees. Smashed Timex face off doorstep. Whole door kickboard loose. Maybe woodworm. Solicitor's letter. 2 whole pages, or wanting full custody. Doc afternoon. Prescribed Anxicam. Will keep just in case. H start at real school. Cut new shoe strap with craft scissors. House cold, damp, lit small fire. Will buy plug-in heater. 2 blind drawings, sharpened branch, India ink. Petty neighbour called, said S wrote initials in wet concrete path outside garden. Said I didn't care, don't care. Leaves on little Acer, bright orange. Carved pumpkin, messy. Tried to ignite boiler, gas smell rancid. Opened windows, kitchen door, sky black, stars like pinholes. Will get plumber, fitful night. Groggy, peanut butter licked from traps, mice getting smarter. Dee's anniversary, cemetery with P morning. Drove Coast Road home, sea, green, choppy. Stopped at garden centre, bought amaryllis bulbs, plus chocolate tree decorations. Shows a will to live, Fee said. H angel in nativity, seems happy. Made new tinfoil star, promised to put up tree soon. Might buy new white lights. Plumber came, looked at old boiler. Old, dangerous and not worth fixing. Snow forecast, ordered cold, briquettes. Clear sky tonight. can make out Winter Triangle, Beetlejuice, Procyon, Sirius.
I'm going to unmute everyone so that we can give a good old clap. Hang on. Ask to unmute, ask to unmute, ask to unmute, ask to unmute. Everyone can give a clap now. There we go. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I mean, if I'm going to just keep unmuting people. We can, if people do want to ask questions, then feel free to ask questions. You can just pop it. I would say to pop something in the chat box. And if someone knows that they've got a dog in the background, they can mute themselves. Yeah, I'm going to keep on muting people. Also, hello, Charlotte. How are you? Charlotte Seymour joined us. And I believe Lucy and Sam, is that Sam of Bloody Fisher? Is that right?
It is. Hello, how's it going?
Not
That was
bad,
brilliant,
yeah.
brilliant reading.
No.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, well, hopefully Sam will be able to come and see you at some point and do
Turn
something.
my video on as well.
Thank you, Sam.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have to do something in real life at some point.
Yeah, that'd be very good.
Hello, Charlotte Seymour. How are you?
Hi.
Great,
thank you.
Thank you to all of the readers. Thank you, Lorenzo, Erica, Suey, Mira, and Angela. They were all phenomenal readings. We had such a wonderful book to publish this year, the physical version of which
It was going to look something like these two here, and I don't know if you can see these.
Yeah.
But these are the two original ones, and we're going to be printing something in October, or hopefully October if that's full, and COVID doesn't come back. Yeah, and you can all get a copy. Sam will have them in Burley Fisher for sure. If you
nice Rezo print edition.
Yeah. And the next event that we're going to be doing is going to be on the 3rd of August. It'll be at probably a bit later, so probably about 8:39 UK time, 10 o'clock Madrid time, so that we can make sure that Kiwis don't have to get up at 6 a.m. Hello, Jenna's kid is there. Hello. Yeah, they were up at 6 in the morning to attend this event, but if you're reading, that's pretty brutal. So maybe we'll try and maybe we can all start a little bit later. Yellow will be able to read his story. Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming. And I guess hopefully I'll see you all in 2 weeks. I'll be sending you all the link for the new reading. And I mean, if you want to stick around and have a chat, feel free to do so. But yeah, thank you. I'll stop the recording now and then. Thanks.